Welcome to the Jolly Joiners 4-H Club Christmas program. We would like to share some Christmas spirit with you.
We will start reading of The Night Before Christmas, done by Devin.
The Night Before Christmas, illustrated by Jan Brett and poem by Clement Moore. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there rose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When, what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all, as dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly. When they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop, the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. Then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they tinkled, his dimples how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry, his draw little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk. And laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down on a thistle. By her exclaim, "Eater," he drove out of sight. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. The end.
Thanks, Devin. That was great.
Next, Dylan will do a finger play and song.
This song is called Where is Santa? Where is Santa? Where is Santa? Here I am, Merry, Merry Christmas, Merry, Merry Christmas, ho, 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 ho.
Holly Jolly Christmas.
The song is called Have a Holly Jolly Christmas. Have a holly jolly Christmas.
It's the best
time of the year. I don't know if there be snow. Have a cup of tea. Have a holly jolly Christmas. Like you walk down the street, say hello to friends you know and everyone you meet. Oh, the mistletoe hung where you can see. Somebody waits for you, guess who waits for me. Have a holly jolly Christmas. In case you didn't hear, oh my God, have a holly jolly Christmas this year.
Awesome job, Dylan.
Now Sarah, Valerie, and Kathy will sing the song God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen.
Hi, we're the Dodge family, and we're going to be singing for you God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day, to save us all from Satan's power when we were gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. From God our Heavenly Father a blessed angel came, and unto certain shepherds brought tidings of the same, how that in Bethlehem was born the Son of God by name. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Now to the Lord sing praises, all you within this place, and with true love and brotherhood each other now embrace. This holy child of Christmas shall fill our hearts with grace. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
Great job, girls.
Hi, my name is Sarah Flack, and I am reading a story by Laurel Ingalls Wilder. A Merry Christmas. Next morning, snow was in the air. Hard bites of snow was leaping and whirling in the howling wind. Laura could not go out to play. In the stable, Spot, Pete, and Bright stood all day long, eating the hay and straw. In the dugout, Ma mended his boots, while Ma read him again the story called Millbank. Mary sewed, and Laura played with Charlotte. She could let Carrie hold Charlotte, but Carrie was too little to play with paper dolls. She might tear one. That afternoon, when Carrie was asleep, Ma beckoned Mary and Laura. Her face was shining with a secret. They put their heads close to hers, and she told them they could make a button string for Carrie's Christmas. They climbed onto her bed and turned their backs to Carrie and spread their laps wide. Ma brought them her button box. The box was almost full. Ma had saved buttons since she was smaller than Laura, and she had buttons her mother had saved her when her mother was a little girl. There were blue buttons, red buttons, silvery and goldy buttons, curved buttons with tiny raised castles and bridges and trees on them, and twinkling jet buttons, painted china, but buttons striped, buttons like juicy blackberries, even one tiny dog head button. Laura squealed when she saw it. Shh! Ma hushed her. But Carrie did not wake up. Ma gave them all those buttons to make a button string for Carrie. After that, Laura did not mind staying in the dugout. When she saw the outdoors, the wind was driving snowdrifts across the bare frozen land. The creek was ice and the willow tops rattled. In the dugout, she and Mary had their secret. They played gently with Mary and gave her everything she wanted. They cuddled her and sang her and got her to sleep whenever they could. When they worked on the button string, Mary had one end of the string and Laura had the other. They picked out the buttons they wanted and strung them on the string. They held out and looked at it and took off some buttons and put on the others. Sometimes they took every button off and started again. They were going to make the most beautiful button string in the world. One day, Ma told them that this was the day before Christmas. They must finish the button string that day. They could not get Carrie to sleep. She ran, shouted, climbed on the benches, and jumped off, and skipped and sang. She did not get tired. Mary told her to sit still like a little lady, but she wouldn't. Laura let her hold Charlotte, and she jounced Charlotte up and down and flung her against the wall. Finally, Ma cuddled her and sang. Laura and Mary were perfectly still. Lower and lower, Ma sang, and Carrie's eyes blinked till they shut. When softly Mom stopped singing, Carrie's eyes popped open and shouted, "More, Mom, more!" But at last, she fell asleep. Then quickly, Laura and Mary finished the button string. Ma tied the ends together for them. It was done. They could not change one button more. It was a beautiful button string. That evening, after supper, when Carrie was sound asleep, Ma hung her clean little pair of stockings from the table edge. Laura and Mary, in their nightgowns, slid the button string into one stocking. Then, that was all. Mary and Laura were going to bed when Pa said, "Aren't you girls going to hang up your stockings?" "But I thought," Laura said, "I thought Santa Claus was going to bring us horses." "Maybe he will," Pa said. "But little girls always hang up their stockings on Christmas Eve, don't they?" Laura did not know what to think. Neither did Mary. Ma took 2 clean stockings out of the clothes box, and Ma helped hang them beside Carrie's. Laura and Mary said their prayers and went to sleep wondering. In the morning, Laura heard the fire crackling. She opened one eye the least bit and saw a lamplight and a bugle in her Christmas stocking. She yelled. She jumped out loud and jumped out of bed. Mary came running too, and Carrie woke up. Laura's stocking and in Mary's stocking there were 2 packages just alike. There in the packages was candy. Laura had 6 pieces and Mary had 6. They never seen such beautiful candy. It was too beautiful to eat. Some pieces were like ribbons, bent in waves. Some were short bites of round stick candy, and the other flat ends were colored flowers that went all the way through. Some were perfectly round and striped. In one of Carrie's stockings were 4 pieces that had beautiful candy. In the other was the button string. Carrie's eyes and her mouth were perfectly round when she saw it. Then she squealed, grabbed it, and squealed again. She sat on Pa's knee, looking at her candy and her button string, wiggling and laughing with joy. Then it was time for Pa to do chores. He said, "Do you suppose there's anything for us in the stable?" And Ma said, "Dress as fast as you can, girls, and go to the stable and see what Pa finds." It was winter, so they had to put on stockings and shoes. But Ma helped them button up the shoes and pin their shawls under their chins. They ran out into the cold. Everything was gray except a long red streak in the eastern sky. Its red light shone on the patches of gray-white snow. Snow was caught in the dead grass, on the walls and the roof of the stable, and it was red. Pa stood waiting in the stable door. He laughed when he saw Laura and Mary, and he stepped outside to let him go in. There, standing in Pete's and Bright's places, were 2 horses. They were larger than Pet and Patty, and they were a soft red-brown color, shining like silk. Their manes and tails were black. Their eyes were bright and gentle. They put their velvety noses down to Laura and nibbled softly at her hand and breathed warm on it. "Well, Flummerbudget," said Pa. "And Mary, how do you girls like your Christmas?" "Very much, Pa," said Mary. But Laura could only say, "Oh, Pa." Pa's eyes shone deep, and he asked, "Who wants to ride the Christmas horses to the water?" Laura could hardly wait, while he lifted Mary up and showed her how to hold on to the mane, and told her she could do it and not to be afraid. Then Pa's strong hand swung Laura up. She sat on the horse's big, gentle back and felt a liveliness carrying her. All outdoors was glittering now, with sunshine on the snow and the frost. Pa went ahead, leading the horses and carrying his axe to break the ice in the creek so they could drink. The horses lifted their heads and took deep breaths and whooshed the cold out of their noses. Their velvety ears pricked forward, then back and forward again. Laura held her horse's mane and clapped her shoes together and laughed. Papa and the horses and Mary and Laura were all happy in the gay, cold Christmas morning. The end.
Now Laurel will sing Silent Night.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Oh, silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace, peace, oh, sleep, sleep, sleep.
holy night, silent night, holy night, silent night, holy night.
Thanks, Laura. That was awesome.
Now, Izzy will read a story called Moments to Remember by Virginia Von Ruden.
I am going to read a story by a local author, Virginia Von Ruden. The story is called Moments to Remember. Mom's voice came racing up the stairs. I detected a note of urgency in her voice, which prevented me from snuggling further under the covers and catching a few more winks. Millie's side of the bed was empty, so I knew that she was already in the barn helping with milking. Rolling out, my feet touched the cold ice sheet disguising itself as linoleum. The socks, worn to bed to prevent frostbite, did little to stop the piercing cold. There was a small drift of snow on the windowsill, so I knew it had snowed during the night and had blown in through the ill-fitting window. I tried scraping the frost off the window to get a look outside, but it was a useless attempt. Grabbing my chore clothes from the corner of the bedroom, I ran downstairs to the warmth of the kitchen. Modesty aside, I found my way to the oil burner in the living room where I shucked off my pajamas, replacing them with the barn clothes still cold from the icebox upstairs. Mom was already busy in the kitchen. Coffee was perking on the stove. The stove was a combination gas and wood type. The old farmhouse was poorly insulated, and the wood stove gave off a nice, comfortable warmth. Her crock bread bowl was on the table, and she was already mixing up a batch of bread which would be ready to eat later in the day. I wanted to get my chores done as quickly as possible. After all, this was December 24th. It was Christmas Eve day, and there was excitement in the air. I didn't want to miss a thing. Quickly, I bundled up with an old raggedy chore coat, 4 buckle overshoes, thick headscarf, and the ever-present yellow chore gloves. I walked outside into the bitter cold. The snow crunched under my overshoes as I hurried to the barn. Opening the door, I was greeted with the barn warmth and smells. Our dog, Puppy, met me at the door, along with several barn cats. It was my job to feed the calves. The youngest babies were taken to their mothers to nurse, while the older ones drank milk from a pail. All of the calf pens were given a good, thick layer of straw which had been grown, cut, and thrashed on the farm. The calves liked to lick up their heels in the clean straw. I put grain in the trough, and the calves pushed each other in order to get their fair share. The hay in the manger was all gone, which meant that I needed to go to the haymow. Brr, it was cold in the haymow, and the lighting was very poor. Throwing down loose hay was one of those jobs which I didn't have to do on a regular basis. It took strength to peel the sheets of hay away from the pile. I did my best to throw enough for the calves. Later, one of the older brothers would throw down hay for the cows. The milking was soon done, and my older siblings threw down corn silage for the cows. I liked the smell of silage, but I didn't like throwing it from the silo. That was another chore that didn't come my way very often, because I was still a kid and did not have the muscle to loosen the silage and throw it down the chute. The silage was put into a metal basket and dumped in the manger in front of each cow. Some cows liked to stretch as far as possible and sample their neighbor's food. My barn chores done, I went to feed the chickens. It was a cold morning, so I added hot water to the chickens' egg mash. There was a race to get to the feeder for the first meal of the day. I hot-footed it to the corn crib and came back with several ears of corn. That should keep them busy for a few hours. Picking the eggs was the last outside chore for the morning. Most of the nests were deserted by the chickens as they were busy at breakfast. There was one hateful, crotchety hen who did not like to give up her eggs peacefully. Her beak was sharp and one peck could draw blood. I usually grabbed a corn cob to force her off the nest. I sometimes wonder who was the first brave person to eat an egg. When chickens roam free, they eat bugs, grubs, and other things found on and in the ground, and an egg emerging out of the backside of a chicken isn't very appetizing. Finally, my chores were done, and I took my pail of eggs and headed for the house. As I walked through the door, the warmth of the house greeted me like a good friend. I shucked off my chore clothes and washed up for breakfast. My older brothers were already eating. They still had many chores that needed their attention. They had to clean the barn, give the cows hay to last the day, and feed and bed the hogs. Farm boys have big appetites, but there was still bacon on the plate and Mom fried a couple of eggs for me. Thinking my outside chores were done, I took my time eating that last slice of toast smothered with strawberry jam. Memories of picking strawberries last spring came to mind as I enjoyed their sweetness on the toasted homemade bread. Suddenly, Mom surprised me with a job that was high on my hated job list. The wood box was getting low and everyone else was occupied with other chores. My little brother sat at the table still enjoying his breakfast. He was the youngest of the family and a little privileged, but his day would come. I redressed for the outdoors. The wheelbarrow was in the shed, and I needed it to carry the wood. The snowfall the night before hindered the job before me. Try pushing a load of wood in the wheelbarrow through the snow. If I had been Paul Bunyan, maybe I could have done it. Finally wising up, I got the sled and tramped down the snow to create a smooth path to the house. Newly fallen snow is pretty, especially on Christmas Eve, but digging wood chunks out of the snow is heavy, slippery work. In no time, my yellow gloves were soaked and my hands were stiff from the cold. If a hunk of wood slipped and hit any part of my body, especially the appendages, the pain was intense. Short trips to the kitchen allowed me to warm up, and the kitchen was full of wonderful smells. Mom had baked a couple of pies, along with raisin bread and pinwheel cookies. Eventually, there was enough wood to satisfy my mom, and I could again peel off my outside clothes. Now I could take a rest, but it was not to be. While I was out digging wood out of the snow, Millie had been busy cleaning. This was a special time of the year, and everything had to be sparkling. She had washed and waxed the downstairs floors. Of course, this was all done on her hands and knees. I have yet to hear someone exclaim how great the floors looked because it was cleaned while someone was on their hands and knees. Besides that, company would be coming tomorrow dragging in all kinds of snow. My married siblings all had children, and we knew how messy children can be. Kids do not care how much time and energy goes into clean, waxed floors. Now I got into the cleaning act. I dusted the living room, which no one lived in. It was a nice room with carpeting and fairly new furniture, but it was a room we rarely used. Next came dusting the floors upstairs and retrieving socks and underwear from under the boys' bed. No heat penetrated into this upstairs igloo, so the dusting was done in record time. Mom had been baking all day, and the sink was full of dirty dishes. Millie and I tackled that job together. Soon the cleaning was done, and we were allowed to sample the cookies along with a glass of cold milk. I heard the truck pull up close to the yard gate, and I quickly looked to see what was going on. At last, Dad finally brought home a Christmas tree. Now, my dad lacked enthusiasm for almost any holiday. I think he grew up during the time when there was little need for any kind of celebrating. His Norwegian immigrant parents were busy working to keep food on the table for their big family, and there was little money for anything beyond the necessities. Since he waited until Christmas Eve to get a tree, he usually brought home a leftover, rejected tree that made Charlie Brown's tree look magnificent. Undaunted, we got the box of ornaments from the attic. Soon, everyone in the house got in on the act. Most of the ornaments had been around for eons, or they were made by us kids at school. That fact didn't dampen our excitement. Mom insisted that icicles had to be put on the tree. She also insisted that the strands be placed on the tree one at a time. Always full of mischief, my brothers would throw a handful into the air and let them fall wherever they may on the tree. This was done when Mom had her back turned. All of the lights actually worked, and the tree looked very festive. Mom was very wise to the antics of her large brood. She managed to wrap presents and hide them from our prying eyes. I think her favorite hiding place was under her bed. Isn't that original? We kids had no reason to go into our parents' bedroom, so it was a safe place to hide gifts. There was even a little dust bunny in one of the presents. Gifts under the tree was such a temptation. My older brother, Andy, loved to poke and shake presents to try and identify their contents. Mom did all of the shopping, but the only store she shopped at was Marshall's Market. Everything else was delivered by the mailman by way of JCPenney's or Sears. The afternoon was soon used up, and it was time to tackle chores again. It was dark by the time the cows were milked, the eggs picked, and the pigs fed, and soon all the animals were at rest. Because it was Christmas Eve, we ate supper after the chores were all done. A wonderful smell greeted us when we came in the house. Mom's face was bright red after all of the baking and cooking she had done all day. Mom bustled from stove to table as we washed up, using lava soap to wash off the chore dirt. At last supper was ready, and we sat at the table, said the blessing, and prepared to be fed for the third time that day. But something was amiss. Where were the potatoes and gravy? Where was the platter of meat? The table looked bare with only a bowl of crackers and a plate of Mom's famous raisin bread. I got a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. At last I put the clues together. A large pot, a bowl of crackers, Christmas Eve, and a stack of raisin bread could only mean one thing. We would be eating oyster stew. How could I have missed it? It was a tradition to have oyster stew on the eve of a blessed holy day. I looked around the table. Dad was slurping. My older brothers were slurping, but no slurps came from my mouth. Who decided that oysters should be served as part of a glorious celebration? Have you taken a good look at those sea creatures? They look like something we may have scraped off the bottom of our shoe. They are not prepared like a fish that is cut open and the insides taken out. Some people eat them raw. How disgusting is that? Jesus didn't feed the multitudes of people with loaves and oysters. Shouldn't that be a clue that maybe we should change the tradition? We live in the Midwest. Oysters live in the sea. Shouldn't that be a clue as well? Or does that mean that people on the East Coast wouldn't be in the same room with an oyster? Maybe they have a tradition of eating Limburger cheese or lutefisk on Christmas Eve. Mom was kind enough to give me a ladle of stew with only one oyster. Mom encouraged us to taste the food she'd prepared. I gathered the oyster in my spoon, closed my eyes, put the oyster in my mouth, and swallowed it whole. After that, I could eat the broth, which was warm milk seasoned with salt, pepper, and butter. Soon the stew pot was empty, and the bread plate held only a few crumbs. The meal was topped off with the pinwheel cookies which Mom had just baked a few hours ago. There were other goodies stashed away, hidden from the prying eyes of all the kids, no matter what our age, and they would appear tomorrow when all of the company celebrated with us. While the guys talked about farm issues, Millie and I got busy cleaning up the dishes. Their conversation suddenly got quiet. I stretched my ears to pick up pieces of information, but the guys were too wily to let anything slip. Soon Dad went to his favorite chair and to read the paper, and the rest of the family gathered around the kitchen table. Would there be more eating? Would there be a discussion of the day's activities? No! This was the time when adults brought out a deck of cards and their coins. And the little kids. Don and I were banished to the Arctic, which was located at the top of the stairs. We had to go to bed and sleep until it was time to attend midnight mass. Leaving the warmth of the kitchen and the livelihood of the card game was like a punishment for being a kid. The laughter from the players floated through the closed door. I could even hear the chink of coins as they passed from player to player. The game of choice was penny ante. I was going to be stubborn and not sleep, and I would show them that I did not need a nap. Despite my resolve, I did fall asleep, and soon Millie was shaking me to get up and get dressed for Mass. Once again, I had to leave a warm bed and stand on a cold floor. It didn't take me long to get dressed. My dress choices were pitifully small in number. At last we were ready to go, and Mom declared that all of us were dressed appropriately for church. Only the men could wear pants to church. No matter how cold it was, we ladies had to wear a dress or skirt. We piled into Dad's Chevy, which was a feat of great proportions. It took a lot of planning to get 7 people in the car. This was before vans and SUVs. Dawn rode in the front with our parents, while the rest of us squeezed in the back. Thank goodness we were all thin, and I sat on whichever lap was available. By the time we arrived at church, the best parking spaces were already occupied, and we had to walk a ways in the snow. By the time we finally walked into church, it was packed. Family members coming home for Christmas joined the rest of us in celebrating this blessed holiday. Being a tad late, we had to sit very close to the front, which meant our behavior would be under close scrutiny. I tried to look around without drawing attention. Everyone looked so nice dressed in their best. All of the guys wore suits. I really tried hard to concentrate on the Mass, but my knees had no natural padding, and the kneelers were like blocks of cement. Father's sermon was extra long, and I began to fidget just to stay awake. After all, I was just a kid. Dawn looked miserable and about ready to fall asleep. At last church was done, and we called out "Merry Christmas" to friends and piled in the car for the ride home. Santa's home. Santa always came while we were at midnight mass. Dawn and I tumbled out of the car and raced to the front door. The door was unlocked, as were most house doors at that time. Switching on the light, we discovered that Santa had indeed made a stop while we were gone. I knew that Mom was the real Santa, but it was questionable if Dawn believed. He got some farm toys, and I got a record player. I never asked for one, but I told Santa at the school Christmas program that I wanted a record player. I guess someone heard that. The rest of the presents remained under the tree waiting for tomorrow when the rest of the family would be there. Hearing some strange noises, I looked around to see what was going on. Mom stood in the kitchen with her mouth wide open in a state of complete surprise. Dad and the boys just carried in a new wringer washer which had been hiding in the shed. She was tickled pink. She couldn't have been happier even if she had received an expensive piece of jewelry. Mom washed a lot of clothes, and a reliable washing machine was a must. Everyone was tired, and we staggered off to bed. Tomorrow would be another full day. Soon it was morning again, and even though it was a holiday, the cows had to be milked and all the animals fed. Mom was up before any of us, stuffing the turkey and stirring up a batch of buns. Older siblings arrived with their families, and the house was full of children showing off new toys and clothes they had received the night before. At last, dinner was ready, and the table almost sagged with the weight of all the wonderful dishes upon it. The table could accommodate just so many people. The men ate first, then the children, and lastly the women. We didn't mind eating last because then we could take our time. I enjoyed sitting with my mom and older sisters. Opening presents is every child's dream. As soon as the table was cleared off, it was time for the presents. The children were beyond excited. Every present they opened was reason for joy. I loved to open presents, and like so many farm families, there was little money for frivolous and non-essential items. I knew that I would get flannel pajamas, socks, and underwear. I was all right with that, as were all of us. If I got a Roy Rogers book, that was the frosting on the cake. I also got some records to go with my new phonograph. Little children began to get cranky, which was a signal that it was time to go home. Their parents gathered presents, coats, boots, and mittens. Many a mitten was lost at Christmas celebrations. Merry Christmas rang out again as families walked to their cars. The house was left in total disarray, with wrapping paper scattered hither and yon. Some forgotten toy would be among the rubble. Reality set in as we straightened the house and put the good dishes and silver away. I took my presents to the igloo and spread them out on the bed. I would try those new pajamas tonight, and I would start reading about Roy, Trigger, and Bullet after chores. It was Christmas Day, and animals don't like to wait for their food. It had been a great day, and everyone had a good time. Having the family together is what Christmas is all about. As the family dynamics change, so do the holiday traditions. Mom and Dad are gone now, and each of the brothers and sisters have their own family celebrations. We all have grandchildren, and most of us have great-grandchildren. The gifts they received did not exist when we were children, and we must go with the flow so we aren't left behind. We have all left behind things which we do not miss at all, and I don't have to pick eggs or throw down loose hay. And best of all, my bedroom no longer resembles an igloo. Merry Christmas.
You did great, Izzy.
Reba will perform a ballad dance to the song Where Are You, Christmas?
That was super, Reba.
Now Sarah will read a story called A Piece of the Past by Virginia Von Ruden.
Hi, my name is Sarah Dodge, and I'm going to be reading A Piece of the Past by a local author, Virginia Von Ruden. Why was everyone so pokey? We needed to get going soon or we would be late. Dad was taking his good-natured time getting ready. I got my chores done early so we could get going early. I admired myself in the mirror. I had received an early Christmas present of a new blue sweater. Blue is my very favorite color, and the sweater fit just fine. But then I looked at my face. I had a shrub on my head. Mom insisted that Millie and I get perms around Christmas time. I don't know what she did wrong, but our hair always got frizzy, and thus we had shrub heads. Mama also insisted that we wear a scarf because it was cold out. I didn't object to wearing a scarf this time. I pulled it real tight to flatten my hair. Mom always got her way because in those days, children didn't have choices. We did as we were told. Finally, we piled into the car and took off. When we arrived at Woodlawn School, many cars were already there. We had to park on the side of the road, and cars were still coming. Woodlawn was a typical one-room school, much like those scattered throughout the countryside. There was no bus transportation, and students either walked to school or were driven by their parents. There was no indoor plumbing, and each day 2 students would walk to the closest farm to get water, which was poured into a crock-like jar in the schoolhouse. No indoor plumbing also meant using an outhouse, which was a challenge in the wintertime. Many farms also had outdoor privies, so we were used to going outside when nature called. One student got locked in the outhouse, and it wasn't noticed until the teacher saw that her desk was empty. We never found out how the incident actually happened. Was it accidental lockup, or was someone making sure that the door was locked? We will never know. Mrs. Carter, our teacher, looked relieved when we walked through the door. I was one of the older students, and I had more responsibility than some of the others. It was finally the night of the Christmas program. Mrs. Carter and the students had been working on the program since after Thanksgiving. This was very important for our teacher because she was our leader, and success or failure, it rested on her. We had decorated the schoolroom with an inch of its life. I had been busy making copies of Christmas pictures on the hectograph. Dozens of these pictures were colored and were hanging on the walls. Younger students had a blast making paper chains to put on the Christmas tree. Mrs. Carter had strung wire on which the curtains hung on the stage. We had practiced our program for days to get it right. I was backstage peeking through the curtains. The entire neighborhood was there. All of our desks and chairs were occupied. Many of the men were standing in the back of the room or leaning on the cabinets. I began to get nervous as I watched more people squeezing through the door. Mr. and Mrs. Lay were there. Their daughter, Dodie, graduated years ago. The younger students waited patiently with their parents until it was their turn to perform. Each child had a part to recite. Most of them had a few lines to memorize. As their name was called, the children walked to the front of the room, said their piece, and then sat down to watch the rest of the program with their parents. It didn't matter if the child forgot their lines. Their parents were proud of them anyway, and they each got a round of applause. The Peterson triplets got up together and recited a nice Christmas poem. Soon, it was time for the older students to perform. They usually had a play to enact, and I was backstage helping out if the lines made a quick exit from their heads. We sang a few songs, which I'm sure sounded dreadful. We didn't have any kind of music. I think Mrs. Carter helped us get started, and then we forged ahead, sounding like a bunch of cats locked in a closet. Jingle Bells was an old favorite, and it was easy to sing. A little town of Bethlehem was a bit more serious, but the parents liked it anyway. As the program went on, the oil burner was still spouting heat from the room. Got unbearably hot with so many people crammed in the schoolhouse. Finally, someone had to open the outside door to let some of the heat out. The program was over. People started to relax and visit. Farmer talk occupied the men. The weather was always a safe subject, and everyone could join in. Farm prices were thrown in there as well. Not to be outdone, the ladies got out the goodies and offered a fine feast. There were sandwiches, bars, cookies, and any other food that fit in with Christmas. When there were only a few crumbs left, we heard, "Ho, ho!" and banging on the door. The little children were wide-eyed when Santa walked through the door. This was the crowning moment of the night. Santa walked through the crowd, searching out every child. Some were bashful and hid behind their mother's skirt, but Santa found them anyway. All of the children got a bag of goodies, and every year the bags contained the same foods. Peanuts in the shell were on the top of the bag, an apple rested on peanuts, and a few colorful candies topped it off. The bags were another part of Christmas, and we didn't mind the reruns. The little kids with sticky hands and exhausted bodies signaled that it was time to go home. Slowly the school emptied. We stayed a little longer and helped bring some order to the schoolhouse. We wouldn't be back in school until after Christmas. Mrs. Carter looked exhausted and happy that it all went well. Woodlawn was more than a school. It was a social meeting place. It was a chance for neighbors to put aside their work and worries and catch up on the news. The men talked about milk prices, frozen water pipes, and tractors that wouldn't start because of the cold. The ladies discussed who was laid up with the flu or cold, new babies in the neighborhood, and Christmas chores still to be done. The one-room country schools existed a lifetime ago, and like so many other experiences, you had to be there to fully appreciate the essence of the school. The beginning of the school year was so special. We all walked in on the first day of school with new clothes, a big chief tablet, pencils that had no teeth marks, and a box of crayons ready to be broken. The school had its own odors, but not bad necessarily. It had the smell of books waiting to be explored, and blackboards and white chalk, and when it was warm, the smell of sweaty little bodies. The desks were in rows and usually attached to each other. The desks had inkwells left over from the fountain pen days. Except for the Amish schools, the one-room country schools exist only in our memories, and a few pictures that were taken over the years. It prepared us for the society that existed at the time. It is light years away from the schools of today. Technology was not a challenge. Our technology was a radio which we listened to for music and book trails. Physical education involved the games of tag and a lively game of baseball. All of the children played together unsupervised. The older children looked out for the younger ones. What memories are stored in those schoolhouses still standing? If we closed our eyes and listened, we could probably hear the sound of the school bell, the crack of a bat hitting the ball. We would hear the sound of the children's voices as they played a spirited game of tag. Our noses would pick up the smell of the garbage burning in the barrel at the end of the day. The odor of mittens drying by the oil burner meant we were throwing snowballs during recess that always went by so quickly. Once again, we have a glimpse of the past. Bravo to those of us who survived the cold outdoor toilets. Bravo to those of us who may have survived a licking. Bravo to those of us who have good memories of that one-room schoolhouse. Hold fast to those memories of the school days and be kind to that person in the mirror.
Thanks, Sarah. That was a nice story. Now Laurel will sing Jingle Bells.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtails ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. A day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bright was seated by my side. The horse was lean and lame, misfortune seemed his lot. We got into a drifted bank and then we got upset. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse
Laura. That was awesome. Now Valerie will read a Christmas poem called The Star.
The Star by Grace Crowell. A high star went before the rich-robed kings who sought the Christ that far-off winter eve. And that same star still shines for you and me, and for all earth's earnest seekers who believe. A star has shed its light upon the road since that far night to mark the way that men may find Christ and never lose their way. It shines as clearly now as it did then, a jewel set ablaze within the night, a silver fire for hearts to warm them by, an everlasting emblem God has wrote, and set its radiant splendor in the sky, a star that countless ages cannot dim or lessen its magnetic power, to bring men of all nations on their knees at last, acknowledging the Christ as Lord and King.
Thanks, Valerie. That was super. Now Lowell will sing you We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding and bring it right here. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. So bring it right here. We all like a figgy pudding. We all like a figgy pudding. We all like a figgy pudding with all its good cheer. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And a Happy New Year.
Some song, Laurel.
Merry Christmas from Jolly Joiners.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.